Hi, good evening, everyone. I just gave about a 60-second intro, not realizing that my mic was muted. So thanks for that confirmation that you now hear me. um, I just wanted to say thanks for joining me. And if you've been to a prior SEO Pro consulting event, you've probably heard me talk about a few abstract things about cool tricks you can do with AdWords, but to be quite honest, what we're going to talk about tonight is one of my true passions, which is using it as a keyword research tool. My personal opinion is that most research tools out there aren't anything close to research. They're just educated guessing tools. And we're going to talk about how you can use this to learn more about your clients' markets as an SEO consultant, how to learn more about your own market if you're doing SEO for your own website, and just be a lot more efficient at what you do with a lot less work than what most people do when they roll up their sleeves and start doing SEO for a website. So with that said, let's get going. So the biggest problem with the typical way people go about SEO is that they just jump right in and pick a few keywords and decide that's what they're going to start optimizing for. Even if you've done your initial research, those are just, as I've said before, those are educated guessing tools, and they can only tell you about estimated traffic. They tell you nothing about your website's ability to convert that traffic into profitable business. And in my personal opinion, anyone who goes and jumps in and starts doing SEO on a website without doing actual research on the profitability and viability of those keywords is putting the cart before the horse, and they're, quite frankly, working a lot harder than they need to. And with all of that said, they may do really good. You may do really good at getting your keywords to the first page of Google, but what if after all that work you make it to the first page, maybe even make it to #1 for keywords? What if they don't convert? Was it worth all of that effort? What I'd like to talk about tonight is ways to save all of that blood, sweat, and tears and frustration, and sometimes clients' frustration, because they can start to get frustrated if you're not making progress quickly enough, and so on. And I want to share some thoughts I've had, some experiences I've had that can avoid those frustrations for you and for your clients. And by the way, you are welcome to chime in questions. I've got my questions panel opened up. I've got my attendee list opened up. So if you have a question or just want to raise your hand and have me unmute you so that we can talk back and forth, you're more than welcome to do either. I'm glad to interrupt what I'm talking about, especially if it's to clarify something that didn't quite make sense. So just keep that in mind, and I'll be watching for your questions. Otherwise, I'll just talk one way, and you can quietly listen on that side and take notes or do whatever you like to do. So again, just to elaborate on that problem, before you can actually measure the effectiveness of a keyword, you actually have to rank for it. And like we talked about, that takes a lot of work. And in fact, a lot of times, when you take on a new client, they say, we want to rank #1 for this keyword. Well, 9 times out of 10, that's a keyword that's going to be very difficult to obtain, and you're probably going to have rather slow progress. And they'll be calling you every day or every week or every few days and checking in, how we doing, how we doing, how we doing, and it's going to be slow progress, and it's going to be frustrating for you both. My personal opinion, I don't care what the keyword is, I don't care how competitive it is, my opinion is that you should do the opposite of what all your competitors are doing. And even though they say, hey, we want to rank #1 for supplements, that's great. While all of your other competitors are saying, okay, that's great, it's going to be a $10,000 a month budget, we're going to work really, really, really hard for you, and we're going to take you from 150th to 130th next month, and then 110th. Well, that's really slow, really frustrating, and again, you might eventually get to them to the front page, and what if it doesn't convert? You're going to have a really frustrated client on your hands. Why not just say, hey, I understand your concern. Let's just buy that traffic. I don't care what keywords you want. Let's just buy the traffic and see how it does. Their first reaction is, well, we don't want to spend that money. We want the free traffic. And you and I both know that there's no such thing as free traffic. It's going to take work. It's going to take resources. It's going to take article writing. It's going to take link building. And although once you get there, if you stop all work with SEO, then yeah, sure, it's kind of free traffic. But my argument, I'm a bit lazier about things. I'd rather just write a check and verify that it's going to be worth my while once I do rank for that keyword. Because if you have a client that wants to rank for supplements and they're currently not even on the first 5 or 6 pages for that term, it's going to take a long while until you can get them there. Or you can say, tell you what, I absolutely understand that. Let's pick your top 5 or your top 20 or your top 25 keywords and let's drive some traffic at it, starting 15 minutes from right now. All I need is your credit card. And you can, instead of being just a, jump when they say jump consultant, you can be an advocate for them and actually help them out and say, I've got a hunch that the keyword supplements or mortgages or some wild and crazy keyword that they think is that they're going to make a killing with isn't as valuable as a keyword as you thought. And I think that we might want to take a different strategy. So my argument is just say, let's spend a fraction of what you would spend on SEO, get results by tomorrow or by next week or by next month, instead of waiting before we can even rank for a keyword, before we can even find out if it's a viable keyword. And I can tell you from personal experience, your clients will appreciate you for taking charge. You will take a different role in their minds. You're not just some lackey who they're paying lots of money who's going to do whatever they say to do. You are a trusted advisor who respects their opinion, but is also going to make sure that you take appropriate steps to make sure that you're not just spending lots of their money without a guaranteed return on that investment. So, moral of this story is it does not have to cost anywhere near what you think it can cost. And, oops, what was that? So, basically, here's how most people think of AdWords. And please chime in. Tell me if you can relate to what I'm saying or not. Most people, when they think of AdWords, think of it as this big, expensive, cumbersome, awkward tool that, and maybe they've even tried AdWords and they threw up some keywords, and what ends up happening is about 20% of that traffic comes in through the exact match terms that they bid on. So in other words, whatever keywords you upload, only 20% comes in from those actual keywords. Another 30 to 50% comes through phrase and broad match, which are usually very untargeted terms. And what ends up happening is you spend a lot of money really quick, you don't make any conversions, or you lose 90 cents on the dollar and you give up. And 9 out of 10 people that I talk to have this experience, and they get a very sour taste in their mouth about AdWords, and they quit and they move on, and that's that. And they never look back at AdWords again. And then they go and just work, and try to get free traffic, or they try out Facebook, or they try Yahoo and Bing because maybe that's a better network. And I'm here to say that none of them are better. AdWords is the best R&D tool out there, and it's by far the cheapest R&D tool out there. And by R&D I mean research and development. There's just nothing better than it. So basically, if you've had this experience, if you think of AdWords as something that just spends a lot of your money really quickly, that's because you've taken the wrong approach. And don't feel bad about it. That's what 90% of people do when they get started with AdWords. That's because the default settings that are in your account when you start an AdWords account are completely wrong. They're they're great, and you might get lucky and you might convert at an okay level, but they're completely wrong from an R&D precise measuring tool standpoint. And that's what we're after. We're not after all the traffic we can get. We're after just simply verifying whether or not the keywords that we want to spend all of our time, blood, sweat, and tears optimizing for can actually make us money. That's more important than anything else. I don't care how much traffic a keyword has. If you rank number one for the word free blue widgets and you sell $50 blue widgets, that ain't going to get you squat, even if you get 100,000 visits a month. And why would you spend all of that time optimizing for the term when you could just buy that traffic and find out by tomorrow whether or not that's a useful keyword? So the bottom line is there is no need, and this is a very important note that you should write down in your notes and keep in mind for any time you use AdWords. Anytime you use AdWords specifically for keyword research. There is nothing that you need if you're doing keyword research to find out the viability of your keywords for your SEO efforts. You don't need anything other than the search network and exact match terms for your keyword. You do not need phrase match. You do not need broad match. They will just get you more traffic than you want, and it will be less targeted traffic than you want, and you'll just spend money faster than you want and get less accurate results. Bottom line is all of that extra stuff, way too complicated. It's definitely good once you know the system and once you know your metrics, but it's not necessary if all you're doing is keyword research. And that's all we're doing here. We're talking about spending small amounts of money, very small amounts of money, relative to what your clients will end up paying you in the long run for your SEO work. But the bottom line here is the results you can obtain are priceless. So that client who sells, supplements for women, and they've got their special formula that is, the best thing since sliced bread, I guarantee that 9 out of 10 of those clients will come up and say, we want to rank number one for supplements. Hey, that's great. Let's make a small investment up front, and let's just make sure that you can make sales for that keyword. And while we're at it, let's check supplements for women and supplements for women over 40 and dietary supplements and best dietary supplements and about 2 or 3 dozen other keywords to just see how well all of those keywords are. And you can throw up 50, 100, 1,000 keywords that are all very targeted to they're all also very targeted and probably more targeted than the keyword supplements, and you can find out which ones of those actually make sales. Then you go and cherry pick the ones that make sales, and you will start ranking way faster, way sooner than if you just go gung-ho and try to optimize for the 1 to 5 keywords that your clients want. Because I guarantee the 1 to 5 keywords that they want are going to most likely be the slowest progress possible. And it could take weeks or months before you even start seeing results. Whereas if you approach it from the other side of the spectrum, you could have results in a week. I used this exact strategy and took a keyword from 78th to number 1 in about a week. And that's a lot better than taking a ultra competitive keyword from, say, 200th to 180th in a month. And actually that leads into a personal story. When I first got started with SEO, I had already been online. I had already had my company for several years. I was spending $50,000, $60,000 a month on AdWords traffic. But our organic free traffic was zilch. We were getting nothing in free traffic. And my 78th example was a true story of me. My best ranking keyword was 78th. And I hired an SEO consultant, and we were paying him, I don't remember, $1,000 or $1,500 a month. And he said, well, what keywords do you want to rank for? That was about the extent of the guidance he gave us. And I said, well, we serve the whole Colorado Front Range. Let's go for Colorado real estate. And he said, okay. I'll give you updates every week. And sure enough, every week, like when we started out, we were ranking, I'm serious, it was like 150th or 200th or something ridiculously high. In other words, we were getting 0 search results or 0 traffic because people just simply weren't digging to the 20th page of Google to find a realtor in the state of Colorado. We had about 199 realtors ahead of us. So sure enough, he gave us updates every week, and maybe we went from 200th to 195th, and then 192nd, 190th. And I'd check in, and I kind of said, "Hey, this is great. We'll make the first page by 18 months from now. How are things going?" And he just kept kind of responding with the same thing. Well, we're link building, and these things take time, and you just have to be patient. And I didn't have $15,000 to invest over the course of the next 10 or 12 months on the off chance that he'll eventually get us to the first page. And then I found I started doing my own research, and I found out ways to do things, and I learned that I had all of the metrics I needed right under my nose. So I kind of did a split test, and I actually took a different website of ours, and I did SEO on that site while he did SEO on our primary website. So my other website was actually ranking worse overall than our primary website, which was no surprise. We didn't put as much energy into our secondary website. But within a month, after just learning some basics and learning how to look through the tons and tons of data that I had right under my nose from the AdWords traffic that I was already buying, I was able to identify my best converting keywords. I identified my short tail keywords, and I identified my long tail keywords. So, being the lazy person that I am, I decided, well, I don't want it to. I'll let him keep trying to optimize for the competitive keywords, but I'm just going to go after these long tail keywords that have gotten us handfuls of leads every month, and there doesn't appear to be any competition because they're small towns, and everybody's going after like Denver real estate and Colorado real estate and all the big sexy keywords that get lots and lots and lots of traffic and also have lots and lots and lots of competitors. So what I did was I took a long tail keyword in a smaller town that had like 2,500 residents and took it from 78th to number 1 in a week. So, and I just think that's so powerful. If you take on a new client and they say, I want to rank number 1 for Colorado real estate, I'm saying don't do what that first SEO consultant I ended up firing did, because you're going to be the same as everybody else, and you're going to get slow and boring results. I'd love to say that you're going to find the biggest secret in the world and get the keyword supplements to number 1 by next week, but let's face it, that's not going to happen. You do have to work at SEO to make it work. So why not take something that you can get results on by next week or next month? And sure, it doesn't have a lot of traffic, but the other good news is that it's way better traffic. You could do more with 10 long tail targeted terms than 100 or 200 short tail competitive terms. That's the definition of the long tail. And if you haven't read that book, go and read The Long Tail. It's a very, very powerful book. It's so powerful I don't remember the author's name offhand. Maybe if someone could type that in, but it's definitely worth the read. So that's just kind of a personal story about how I got into the world of SEO pretty much by mistake, by just simply looking at the data that was right there under my nose from the AdWords traffic that I had already been buying for years. And that's how I kind of built that, that and a lot of great mentoring from some great minds that I found at various conferences that I've attended, is how I developed this philosophy that I still have today when I do any consulting, whether it's SEO or for AdWords traffic. So basically, when we're doing AdWords for keyword research, I want to talk about why those great quote-unquote keyword research tools aren't so great. The bottom line is they all have inaccurate results, including Google's own keyword research tool. I have done tests where I will go and buy the exact match terms that they say have 50,000 searches, and in some cases I'll only get 20,000 searches in a month. In other cases I'll get 80,000 searches in a month. The biggest thing there is that you're only guessing when you're guessing on keyword search volumes. But more importantly, there is zero value in knowing what how much keyword volume there is if you don't know how well that keyword is going to convert. I can tell you that I would rather do optimization for a keyword that only gets 1,000 searches a month but is a longer tail, more targeted term than just jump in at a keyword like, say, supplements or Colorado real estate, even if it's getting a couple 100,000 searches a month, because I just don't know what my ability is to convert that keyword. If I can convert it, great, but I need to know how well I can convert it and how much a visitor for that keyword is worth to me before I'm going to put my heart and soul into optimizing for that keyword. So the bottom line is all of those tools out there, they're great for doing initial keyword estimations, but I hesitate to call them keyword research tools. They're just initial guesswork for what, in my opinion, you should be doing as real keyword research, and that's just buying the darn traffic. Christy, great question. How did I identify my long tail keywords? It's interesting. I basically stumbled into it in the fact that I just went after. I learned how to rank or find out the rankings of all the keywords that I was trying to rank for, and I'll actually show you how to go and just generate tons and tons of keywords. And I took, I don't know, 800 or 1,000 keywords that we were actually targeting, because we're a pretty decent sized company. We target 216 cities, and back then maybe we were only targeting 30 or 40 cities, but we have agents all around the Colorado area, and so basically what I did was I loaded keywords for all of those cities into my research tool, and you can do that. You can still do that to this day with Market Samurai, which is a free tool that you get through Stompernet. And there are various other research tools. And all I did was I loaded all my keywords up. And what I found out was that keyword in particular was 78th for, and that was my best ranking keyword. So all I did was I said, well, if that's my best ranking keyword, it's my most likely one to be able to increase rankings. And it just so happened that it was my best ranking keyword because it wasn't all that competitive of a keyword. But when people were searching for that city, they definitely wanted to live there. Because if you think about it, like if someone's searching for Colorado real estate, they don't necessarily know what they want. If they search for Denver real estate, they probably have a better idea, but they still probably just got a job interview and they're just kind of kicking the tires. However, if they go and search for a small city like, I don't know, Horsetooth Reservoir real estate, that has 1,000 visitors, then they know where they want to be. It's not because there are only like 20 jobs in Horsetooth Reservoir. You typically have to commute into town. They would, so someone searching for one of those cities is more specific in what they're looking for. They're farther down the sales process than someone looking for, say, Colorado real estate. So did I have a formula? No. Quite frankly, I just went for the lowest hanging fruit and optimized for it and got immediate results. And I personally think that if you're an SEO consultant, you would impress your client a lot more if you say, tell you what, I hear you. I hear you on wanting to rank for Colorado real estate, and we'll put that on the top of our list. But if you don't mind, if you could give me maybe 20% of the budget, and I'm going to pick a few other keywords that I think we can get you almost instant results on. And let's go after those. But before I even guess at what those are, let's buy traffic to those keywords, and let's see if it can convert. And that's what you're doing here with AdWords. You just buy the traffic, and it does not have to be a lot of money. So to demonstrate, Christy, hopefully that answered your question on how do I define long tail. Typically, when you're buying the traffic, you'll see the keywords that have higher conversion rates are typically your longer tail keywords, and the numbers just dictate that for you. Now, this is just an example. This isn't an example of keyword research because it's actually only one keyword. This is just the single keyword, supplements for women over 40. Now, this is a demonstration of how AdWords is not nearly as expensive as you think. So my question is, are these good conversion rates? So we've got an average cost per conversion of just under 20 bucks. Well, we don't know. But what I want to say is this is how a typical account looks where their acceptable conversion rate might be $10 or $20. But do we see any patterns here? What I'm mostly trying to point out here is that if your acceptable conversion rate is, say, $20, there are only two match types that are actually acceptable here, and that's exact match and phrase match. Worse, if your acceptable cost per conversion is, say, $5, there's only one keyword that's doing you any good anyway. All of these others, you're losing money, and in some cases, you're losing money hand over fist. So my whole argument is AdWords is nowhere near as expensive as you think it is if you just enter into it doing this. Just bid on exactly the terms that you want traffic for, nothing else, because all of this gets you all sorts of other junk that you don't want. Just bid on the exact match terms, and I'll show you how to do that, and ignore everything else, because all we're doing here is R&D. We don't care about this extra traffic. We just want to see if we can convert this keyword, this exact match keyword, on Google, on Google's own network, at an acceptable rate. And we'll talk about what an acceptable rate is down the road too. But this is just kind of a quick screenshot I wanted to show of why this isn't actually as expensive as you think it is. Most people jump in and they load the keywords with Google's default settings, which would get you all of this junk. It would get you these $12 per conversion keywords. It would get you these $20 per conversion broad match keywords. It would get you this near worthless display network traffic. These are real examples. All I did was change keywords for confidentiality reasons. This is a real demonstration of what an account might look like if you loaded your keywords up with the default settings, which would deliver traffic for all sorts of worthless terms. So the quick moral of the story is cut your costs by 70 to 90%, use exact match only, because that's all we're interested in. And you can pass this straight on to your clients and say, I want you to give me a $1,000 budget to do R&D, and we're going to verify that every single keyword that you have me doing work for and that you're paying me to do work for will actually make you money before I lift a finger and before you spend a dime paying me to go and do SEO on that keyword. So that's the first step of just really earning their trust and moving in the direction of a trusted advisor, not just some guy or girl who's going to drive a bunch of worthless traffic to them or to their websites. So another example is this random example of keywords. And this is an example of what I'm going to talk about next, which is tracking conversions. So let's just say that your client says we only want to optimize for these 3 keywords. Or actually, we just want to pick one keyword and we want to put all of our energy into that. So based on this information, which keyword would we go for? And the answer, it's kind of a trick question. The answer is we don't have enough data. This is nothing different than just guessing based on keyword tools. And this is alleged impressions, but even if these are actual impressions, we don't care. We don't want to make our SEO decisions based on search traffic alone. Instead, we might take it a step further, and we're going to run some ads. And we might see that the click-through rate is, although initially it looked like Blue Widgets was the best one because of the search volume, what we might quickly find out if we just simply run some ads is that Blue Discount Widgets has twice the click-through rate and ends up getting a lot more traffic for you, which is actually more important than just the search volume alone. We're not done yet, though. Then, the beauty of AdWords is we can track every dime we spend. And what you would actually find out if you ran a test is that you might find out that, sure, this has the most search volume, but the click-through rate, isn't all that great. And actually, the conversion rate is pretty poor. Same for this one. This one has a phenomenal click-through rate, but the conversion is terrible. Why? Because you don't sell discount widgets. You might sell $50 or $100 custom widgets. So this is an example of how important it is to just buy the traffic. And you don't have to spend a lot of money in the grand scheme of things to find this information out. But what this does tell you is that your client, who everyone else under the sun says, sure, we can rank you for Blue Widgets. We'll have you there within 6 months from now. You could do a week or two worth of research, track conversions, have a little bit of patience, and tell them that you're going to exercise a little bit of patience and find out actual results. And you come back to them with this report and say, tell you what, I actually have a pretty strong hunch based on this information that we want to go for Blue Custom Widgets. Sure, it has way less traffic, but the click-through is really good, and the conversion rate is phenomenal. You can only find that information out by buying the traffic. So I hope I'm not getting up too much on a soapbox here. Feel free to chime in. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know how I'm doing so far. If you've got questions, I want to kind of stop and answer those before I keep moving on. But I just can't tell you how important this is. And this, I mean, sure, you may be able to ink that deal a lot quicker if you just say, sure, let's get going. We need to get going as soon as possible on Blue Widgets. If you just exercise a little bit of patience and act as an advisor versus just a contractor who's going to try to help them as soon as possible, regardless of the results that happen, you'll have a lot better results in the long run. Quick question from someone: how do you track conversions if not sending to a website? I'm assuming that your client has a website that they want to rank for. If you could maybe clarify that a little more, I can elaborate. But you know, I have demonstrated in the past how you can just track search traffic to see if there is actually as much traffic as they say there is. But you know, that's assuming that you don't have a website at all, and that's kind of a different discussion altogether. What we're talking about here mostly is, you know, making sure that we're assuming your client has an existing website and they want to hire you to do SEO on it. So if you want to clarify that question, I'd be glad to answer it a little more clearly. But I don't know that I understand your question for sure. While I'm waiting for that to come in. Okay, so we did clarify. Yes, I am talking about sending the traffic to the client's website. I mean, they're hiring you to do SEO on their website. You're just saying, hey, let's be a little more diligent about this, and let's do some research before we jump into what will very likely be a very large SEO campaign. And they'll appreciate you for that. They'll appreciate you saying, before I go and spend $50,000 of your money on SEO, let's just spend a couple $1,000s verifying that that investment will actually be worthwhile. So that's kind of the bottom line that we're doing there. That's my personal opinion. That's what I've been taught by some very, very successful internet consultants, some SEO experts, some super affiliates, they all do this same thing. They validate first, then they go hog wild doing SEO. You should do the same thing, whether it's for your own business or for your clients. The big thing is you must set it up properly, and the lesson there is do not go with Google's default settings. You will lose money faster than you can say, I lost money. And again, if nothing else, we've got a good 15 more slides, but if nothing else, just remember that one lesson. Exact match only, search network only. That's all you need for R&D. So now we're going to talk about 5 bullet points, all having to do with everything you need to do, nothing more, nothing less, but everything you need to do to use AdWords to spend as little as possible and get as accurate results as possible in as quick an amount of time as possible. So we'll talk about these 5 sections one at a time. So the first one is pretty straightforward. You go to adwords.google.com and sign up for an account. Now there are a few hints with this. One thing I found that a lot of clients actually do is they'll set up an account and they get distracted and they don't load up all their keywords or their ads, and then like a week later they'll get a note from Google, from a Google rep, saying, hey, we noticed that you signed up for an account but you haven't started running ads. Is there anything we can do to help? 2 things that happen with this. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a note that I have no sound. I don't know what I did. Did I possibly mute myself? I don't look muted. Do you hear me? Okay. I think I might have bumped the mute button on my microphone. Sorry about that. Where did you lose me? Were we to this hint page when my volume dropped out? Back up 2 slides. Okay, so I lost you somewhere on this slide. Okay, thanks guys. Thank goodness for these real-time questions coming in. So from basically now, everything we're going to talk about, I basically broke them into 5 different bullets. They all have to do with nothing more and nothing less than setting up a bare bones AdWords account that's optimized for maximum efficiency and minimum money spent. I've spent millions of dollars of AdWords myself, in my own money or my own company's money, but I'm still a cheapskate and I will not spend more money than necessary. So this is so you can do this type of research on a shoestring budget. Now, does that mean that you're going to be able to sell the, mortgage keywords or jumbo jet keywords for a nickel? No. You will have to spend, competitive amounts per click to get that traffic, but that is well worth the investment. I don't care what the cost per click is, it's still well worth the investment. One of the biggest misnomers I hear from people is, oh, well, I'm in the mortgage industry and I can't afford pay-per-click because that's a $30 to $40 per click industry. Well, I don't know what people are thinking when they think that they can just waltz into an industry that has $30 or $40 cost per click and that they can just waltz into that industry with SEO. If it's $30 or $40 per click, it's going to be hyper competitive in SEO too. So there's typically a pretty direct correlation with what you have to spend per click and how hard it is going to be to do the SEO, which is all the more reason that you need to have an adequate budget for setting up your AdWords account. But anyway, we're just going to talk about spending as little as possible to get as much accurate research as possible for your clients so that you can do the best job possible for them. So the first step, pretty straightforward, set up an account. Pick an email address, create a password, and you're in. Now a couple hints before you do that is, and I learned this just recently, Google is actually getting very aggressive. They've gone back and forth on whether or not they're assigning reps and so on, and it's still kind of a random thing. However, what we have recently found out from a few clients is that if you go and establish an account, set it up, sign up for a username and a password, but don't don't enter a credit card yet, and don't enter keywords, and don't activate your campaigns yet. And what we've been finding is that 5 to 7 days after that account gets set up, if you don't have activity, Google will actually contact you. They will either have I'm sure they just have an automated email that gets kicked out, but it comes from them. It offers you a rep. They offer to set up your account, and it's a great way of, one, getting a rep who can help you when you have questions, which is invaluable, and two, sometimes they'll offer you a credit and say, can we offer you an incentive to get started? Here's a $100 coupon. We've heard reports from clients who have gotten as much as $300 coupons to advertise with AdWords. So that's just one quick tip for you. Another quick tip is when they set up your account, disable everything except exact match terms in the search network. Remember, they're going to set up your account with their best practices in mind, and those are quite different from my best practices. Remember, you don't want display network traffic, you don't want broad match traffic, you don't want phrase match traffic. Real quick survey, if you guys could chime in with a question, just a quick yes or no. Does everybody here understand the difference between broad match, phrase match, and exact match? I'm not going to have a visual to explain it for you, but I can quickly explain it if needed. Yes, 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 sort of. Okay, good. We're good there. And for the person who said sort of, that's okay. Don't worry about it. All you need is exact match, and I'll show you how to do that. Just trust me that broad phrase and display network is more expensive most of the time, but definitely more expensive from a research standpoint. So the next thing, and more important thing than even setting up your account, is setting up conversion tracking. If you don't have conversion tracking, it ain't worthwhile. Don't do AdWords. It's not much different than doing SEO. This is absolutely positively critical. It's pretty easy to do, but I'm surprised at the amount of people that don't actually do this. And not tracking conversions is like shooting in the dark. Worse, it's like, taking your family member and putting an apple on their head and telling them to walk 100 yards away and shooting in the dark. Don't do it. Always track conversions. There are always things you can do to find out, to measure whether the traffic you're sending is converting into real traffic. So this is extremely important. It is literally as easy as 1, 2, 3, and I'll outline those steps right now. So basically, the first thing you want to do is, from within your AdWords account, you just simply go on over to the it's actually the reports tab, and you go to the conversion. There will be a little drop down that would drop down right here, and you would just hit the conversions link. And there are all sorts of helpful links right over here. What is conversion tracking? How can it help you? All of that stuff. But it's pretty straightforward. You're going to name your action, and you're going to say sale of blue widgets, mortgage lead. It's not a big deal. I'm assuming you pretty much only have 1 or 2 types of conversions you would get, and it's typically a sale or a lead. And they ask you that here in this drop-down. You would just hit the drop-down, and you would tell them whether it's a sale or a lead. And if it's a sale, you can estimate what that sale is worth, and you can enter $10, $100, $500, whatever your industry is. There's some kind of advanced programming that you could do to actually track actual conversions, but I'm going to just keep it simple for right now, and let's just go with an estimate. Your clients probably know what a lead is worth to them, and it might be $10, it might be $50, it might be $500. Enter that figure. Likewise for a sale. Most of your clients know what a sale is worth to them. You can just enter that figure. And you just kind of finish this questionnaire. Yes, it's going to be English. The conversion page security level, you have to know. So if it's a shopping cart, it's most likely a secure page that you're going to put this script on. And you just pick one or the other, and Google will then create a script for you. So step 2 is they give you this handy little 12, 15 line script. And all you do is copy this script and paste it onto your website. Now the important part is where you paste it on your website is important. Basically you just have to put it on the page that shows up after the customer takes the desired action. So if you have a lead gen site, you would put this on the thank you page that shows up after they opt in. And in a perfect world, you would put it on the page that shows up after they confirm your email, assuming you're doing a double opt-in system. But it should be the thank you page that shows up after they take the desired action you want them to take. If you have an e-commerce site that has a shopping cart, or if you have some sort of a sales site that goes through a shopping cart, it's also pretty simple. You take this code, you paste it onto the confirmation page that shows up after they give you their credit card number and after they confirm the purchase. So it's really pretty straightforward, and all this does is Google puts this little this snippet of code onto your thank you or your confirmation page, and that way every time you drive traffic to a website, Google will say they will track every single keyword and tell you exactly which keywords turned into a sale or a lead. And I tell you guys, that is so valuable. It's like more important than anything you could ever do in your research for your clients. I mean, knowing which keywords turn into sales versus just blindly driving traffic, that's what separates the winners from everyone else. So a couple questions here. Is all my work done in my personal AdWords account, or do I create a new account for each client? Well, as an AdWords manager and as an AdWords consultant, I have a different account for every single client, and it's very easily manageable through what's called an MCC account. It stands for Multiple Client Center. Just Google the term AdWords MCC, and you'll be able to find that. It's a free application, and if you do AdWords management for clients, it's a phenomenal tool because it lets you just bounce back and forth between multiple accounts really, really easily. Another question is, can you put a lead capture form on a landing page, or does Google have issues with that, as in raising cost per click? That's a very good question, Paul. And basically, you do need to be careful of having what I call a gun-to-your-head squeeze page. You don't want to have a one-page squeeze page that gives them no options other than opting in to find your easy button riches that you're promising them they can get. That's going to get knocked down and disabled quicker than you could hit the activate button. However, there are ways around that. You can have an opt-in form on the landing page. In fact, we do that all the time. What you want is to give a good user experience and have some other resources, have some other links to other pages on your website. In fact, the best way to do it is just to get a simple blog that has a site-wide opt-in form over in the left or the right panel, and so that way it shows up on every page of your website, so that way you can give them lots of links that they can go and read other articles or other blog posts or other resources and get plenty of information without being forced to opt in for whatever free report it is that you're giving away. So that's a good workaround for that, what I call gun-to-your-head rule that Google has. Okay, so that's conversion tracking. Like I said, it's extremely important. So important that I'm going to tell you to quit right now and don't do AdWords if you can't implement conversion tracking. But it's just so important that you have to do it. So the next thing after you've done that is to just pick a budget. And that's, like I said earlier, it's going to depend on your industry. If you're taking on a mortgage client, expect to have a lot of competition and to have to do a lot of SEO. And likewise, expect to deal with their objections about not wanting to spend $30 per click for a mortgage lead. I mean, I'm not saying you have to spend $30, but if that's the going rate to get to the first page, you're going to have to spend it, and they're going to have to spend a lot of money to rank competitively for the mortgage terms that they're going after, because there are a lot of mortgage companies already spending a lot of money on SEO. So that can be good for you. And I still think that this, advocate versus jump when they say jump strategy is still going to work for you in the long run, because they'll appreciate that. What you don't want is to have a client like me 10 years ago. Actually, it wasn't even that long ago. It was like 7 years ago when I did SEO, or when I hired someone to do our SEO. What you don't want is a client like me who says, we want to rank for Colorado real estate. I don't care what you charge, it's going to take a while to get results, and you'll end up getting a frustrated and resentful client. And I don't care how much money someone gives me. Life's too short for that. So that's just kind of I'm going to get back off my soapbox, and now we'll talk about picking a budget. This still is important, because if you're getting into the jumbo jet industry, a $10 a day budget ain't going to cut it. So it's important that you make sure to estimate your budgets accordingly. And I have kind of a rule that it's pretty straightforward. Basically, first you have to know your value per visitor, and that's what tells you what your break-even budget is. What we're shooting for is just to break even. We don't necessarily worry about making a profit, because remember, we're doing research and development, and breaking even to do research is phenomenal. There are companies that spend millions of dollars on research without without expecting a return on that investment initially at all. So even if you just have a goal of breaking even for this research phase, that's fine. So to establish your value per visitor, all you actually have to do is just take your average profit, let's say that's $100, and divide that or multiply that by your average conversion rate. So if your average profit is $100 and your average conversion rate is 1%, well, then your value per visitor is $1. Well, that's pretty straightforward. So the most you should spend on a cost in a cost per visitor is $1. And if your conversion rate is 1%, then theoretically you should break even for every 100 visitors you get. Now, statistics don't work that way, so I have a 5 times rule. I want to basically drive enough traffic to have had 5 conversions. And if I don't get a single sale after, so for example, if I'm in a market where I can expect a 1% conversion rate, if I don't get a single sale after 500 visits, then I know I have a problem. But just because you have a 1% conversion rate, that does not mean that you will make 1 sale for every 100 visitors. It's statistically possible to get 495 visits and not a single sale, and then have 5 visits in a row. It's rare, but it will happen. So kind of keep that rule in mind. And these are just a few benchmarks that you might want to write down. Have a budget, so determine your value per visitor. And in this case, we've decided that if my client makes $100 per sale, remember that's profit, not revenue. But if they make $100 per sale, then they hold on, I'm getting Skype messaged like crazy from someone I want to verify. There's nothing that's urgent. Okay, I'm okay. Sorry for those chirps if they're coming across for you guys. But anyway, you want to enter into this with a realistic expectation. Like I said, if you're selling jumbo jets, you're going to need bigger than a $1,000 budget, because your average visitor is probably going to cost you $50, and you're probably going to need 500 to 1,000 visits. So you're going to need a $5,000 budget. But that's okay, because you're selling jumbo jets, and they probably have $1 million budget. But for whatever the case, if you're selling golf clubs and your average their average profit is $100, their average conversion rate is 1%, your value per visitor $1, average conversion rate is 1%, so our testing budget should be at least $500. Not a big deal. That's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. So I want you to kind of keep these percentages in mind and just write these down. And when you're talking with your clients, kind of have that consultative approach and pick their brains. Talk about what their visitor value is. Ask them what their average close rate is. Ask them what they make per sale, and then come up with a testing budget that you propose to them and say, with your permission, I'd like to use X amount as a testing budget before we go hog wild doing SEO, because I really want to verify that these keywords are as valuable as we think they are before we start spending money on it, or before we start doing SEO to drive quote-unquote free traffic at it. I'd rather just buy the traffic and start getting results tomorrow. And it's that quick. I mean, you could have results, you could start getting traffic in as little as 15 minutes from right now if you start an AdWords account. So does anybody have questions about picking your budget before we move on? I've often assumed that this is a simple concept, and sometimes people just want to get a lot more clarification on that. So now's the time to chime in if you want more clarification. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to bullet number 4. Going once, going twice. No. Okay, quick question. Is that a daily budget? No, absolutely not. This is your testing budget. What you're doing is you're basically saying, okay, look, we're in a market that gets 1% conversion rate. I'd like to drive 500 visitors, and this is it's not even per keyword, it's per group of keywords. So if I'm selling blue widgets, if I'm selling blue widgets and red widgets, I would consider those 2 keyword groups. I'm going to have my custom blue widget ad group, and it might have 5 to 100 keywords in it, and I'm going to have my custom red widgets ad group. Or I might have a custom blue widgets ad group and a discount blue widgets ad group. I would consider that's 2 ad groups. So if this is a 1% market, that's 2 ad groups that I'm going to test. So I'm going to want 1,000 visits, 500 for each, just to test the viability of those markets. And these are just recommended volumes. If they say, we don't have that much in our budget, we only got $500, well, work with what you can and do research. I'd rather see you research blue widgets first, test the viability of it, see if it can convert, go and start optimizing for the best long-tail terms that have converted for you, and then say, okay, we've proven on that, I'm working on blue widgets, now let's go and test red widgets, or some other variation of keywords that they want to target. So that was a great question. That is definitely not a daily budget, but it's kind of it's a testing budget per group of keywords that you're going to test for and see if you can make sales. Good question. Okay, now let's move on. Item number 4. Campaign, ad group, and keyword structure. A lot of people get all hung up on this. And again, this is a pretty simple thing. It's kind of like creating an outline for what you're going to do. Basically, your campaign is your bucket that you organize all of your ad groups into. And then within each campaign, you have an ad group. So with let's use something a little more applicable. Instead of blue and red widgets, let's use the golf industry. So I would have campaign 1 might be golf clubs. Campaign 2 could be golf shirts. Why do I have those in 2 different campaigns? Because my golf clubs are worth $100 per conversion. My golf shirts are only worth $5 per conversion. So I want to keep those in different campaigns because I'm going to be making entirely different bids on those 2 different sets of keywords. And then up here in my golf clubs campaign, I would have maybe Ping, and then, I don't know, Wilson, and various other categories of golf clubs. And then within each ad group, I would have buckets of keywords. I would have anywhere between 5 and 1,000 keywords. As long as they're closely related to whatever ad group it is, I can put up to 2,000 keywords per ad group. So we have a campaign, which is kind of your Roman numeral 1, your ad group, which is capital letter A, and then keywords would be regular number 1. And you would have 1 to 2,000 keywords per ad group. And then wash, rinse, and repeat for each ad group. The important thing is just kind of organize your campaigns I really recommend that you organize them not only by separating like golf clubs from golf shirts, but also separate values. If you have a wide variety of values of keywords, because Ping golf clubs is going to be worth a lot more money than Ping golf socks. And you're going to be bidding entirely differently. So just keep that in mind when you set up your campaigns, and you should be pretty good to go. So I actually did flesh that out using widgets just so you have a visual. So this would be my campaign name. I would have red widgets. Now then I would have an ad group of custom red widgets, and I might have a different ad group of discount red widgets, and I would have a bunch of varied keywords that are all closely related. Notice that all of these are very closely related to my ad group. That's the important part, because this is a group of keywords that I'm going to test. So I would allocate, if these red widgets, if I have let's say I have a value per visitor of 10 cents and a conversion rate of 1%, well then I have a testing budget of not $500 but $50. I would allocate $50 to this ad group. I would allocate another $50 to this ad group. That way I know I'm going to get 500 visitors, roughly 500 visitors, before I make a decision on whether this is a worthwhile set of keywords for me. Question. So you set up the budget for the ad group. Yeah, when I'm recommending a testing budget, you should do a testing budget per ad group that you're going to test. That way, it's also going to help keep your clients in check. Oh, instead of having them go, oh, well, we want to rank for these 100 keywords. Okay, that's going to be 10 groups of keywords. That means I'm going to need not $500 testing budget. I'm going to need $5,000. Then all of a sudden they make your job easier because they go, oh, okay, well, how about we just test these 20 keywords? So you get to keep them in check by taking this approach too, because sometimes it can get tough. A lot of clients might just be ready to jump right in and say, okay, we're going to optimize for 100 keywords, and that's going to slow your progress down a lot. And this is a good way of just kind of keeping your clients in check, so that they know that, oh, well, I guess that's true. We can't just go hog wild. We've got to have focus. So let's pick our best 2 groups of keywords and test for those. And again, this isn't a hard and fast rule. These are recommendations that you're going to need to have a little bit of wiggle room in, plus or minus, depending on your clients' budgets or your budgets, and how competitive the keywords are, and more importantly, what the conversion rates are. But just keep kind of those rules in mind, those percentages that I outlined before. If you're in a market with 1%, yeah, you want 500. You want to test. You want to drive 500 people to your website before you can make a determination about how profitable those keywords are. If you're doing lead gen for someone and their conversion rate is 20%, great. The higher your conversion rate, the less visits you need. That's just the way statistics work. So you still would want enough traffic to generate what should be 5 conversions. But if you're converting at 20%, that actually only takes 25 visits. That way, if you get 25 visits and you know that you should be converting at 20%, you don't have any conversions, you know something's wrong. So write these numbers down, keep them kind of in a journal for future reference. And that wraps us up for testing budgets. Any last minute questions before we move on to the final part of just actually adding keywords and doing permutations? Okay, assuming that we've got that covered, let's talk about that. And I use 2 free tools, Google's own keyword tool, and another one that I learned from a mentor a long time ago, Dan Thies, and it still exists today, and it's just the coolest tool in the world. So the first and most obvious is Google's own free keyword tool, and I created just a quick link for you because it's a big, long, ugly URL that would be impossible to copy down. So just go to tinyurl.com/k KW tool, and you'll go to AdWords editor or AdWords free keyword tool. And the good news is, if you're logged into your account, you can go and generate keywords and directly port them right into campaigns that you would have set up as placeholders for these keywords. If you're not, you can copy and paste these into a spreadsheet and go manipulate those however you want. But there are two very important checkboxes when you use this tool. The first is you only want, when you're actually generating the keywords, like if you're initially just doing some brainstorming to just kind of get a feel for your market and find maybe some alternate keywords that you didn't think of, uncheck this box and let them suggest a bunch of stuff. But once you get to the point of creating keyword groups, remember our custom red widgets keywords versus discount red widgets, in my opinion, those are two different keywords because custom is a lot different than discount. So those should be two different ad groups that should be monitored separately, and each should have its own testing budget. Well, that way, when you check this box, you can just put in like custom red widgets custom, customized red widgets, a bunch of kind of seed keywords. And Google will then go and suggest a lot of other ones, but they will all have to do with, custom red widgets. So that's what checking this box does, is it narrows the keywords that you generate to just ones that are very closely related to the seed keywords that you put in. Don't do this example here. I mean, you want to get more targeted than this. You don't want to have one ad group of supplements and throw all of this stuff out there. Notice all of this stuff that is very different. I mean, discount supplements, bodybuilding supplements, weight loss supplements, those are each ad group categories of their own. So that's just item number one. Make sure this is checked and go for medium to long tail phrases, and then kind of take those and import them into your account. Item number two is uncheck their default option of broad match and check the exact match option. That way they'll put these nice handy little brackets in there that tells Google, I don't want any keywords other than these that you just generated. Don't give me discount supplements that are offered for free. Mary's stupid discount supplements. I don't know. I mean, what happens is when you do broad match is they get, quite frankly, somewhat reckless with substituting keywords that they think are relevant. That's where you start to burn up your budget. So this is a really important one to make sure that you are only driving exact match traffic. And that's how you keep your expenses as low as possible and get results that are as accurate as possible. Now, if this isn't enough, like in some cases you might only generate 3 to 5 keywords, and you want to go and test a bunch of other permutations. Another tool that I use, and this is an optional kind of extra credit tool, but it's pretty cool, is Aaron Wall's keyword permutation tool. And I've got the link up here. Quite frankly, all you need to do is go to just go to Google and type in keyword permutation tool, and it'll be the #1 result because it's a really popular tool, and he ranks #1 for that. But oops. So what this tool does is it generates literally limitless permutations of your keyword. So actually, I have a I've got it loaded up so we can do kind of a live demo here for you. So here it is, the keyword tool. It's changed a little since that screenshot I did, but it's the keyword list generator. And basically, what you're going to do is, let's just say that we want to create a bunch of permutations for red widgets. So we can do red widgets. And actually, I'm gonna add another modifier. So I'm gonna move this down, and I'm going to do custom discount. I don't know, free cheap, customized. You get the idea. As you can see, you can start to get pretty high volumes of keywords pretty quick. Because what I'm going to do is take all these, combine this, with this, and let's add another one. So we have custom red widgets online. Heck, we could do, we could even add other ones and say order custom red widgets online. You could really start to go crazy. And actually, just for kicks, I'm going to do that. Move down, move down, move down, move down. I'm going to say order. There we go. So now I'm going to say, give me exact match results only, generate. And this just generated a ton of permutations that I can just go and copy and paste into the AdWords account that I already created. So this is where you can test a large set of very, very tightly knit keywords. Notice that these all have to do with red widgets. Granted, I might separate custom from discount, but this was for the sake of demonstration. Hopefully you guys get the idea. So that's free tool number 2 that you can use to just add keywords into each ad group so that you can test those keywords. And basically, I just realized that I added a 6th section, and that's setting up multiple ads. This is also very important, especially for SEO reasons, because a lot of times when we write our title tags and our meta descriptions, we write what we think is best from an SEO standpoint, but it might not be best from a conversion standpoint. So while we're driving traffic, we also want to test multiple ads. And basically what you want to do when you do that is just add, and this is a recent development that makes it really, really easy. So you're going to add 2 to 5 different ads per ad group, and you're going to set your options. Google has a handy little setting in the campaign settings that says optimize for conversions. And what that means is at Google, you can write 2, 5, 10 different ads, and eventually, once you have enough conversions, Google will track the best performing ad for you. And that's huge. Like, that can help a lot with your SEO. So you're doing SEO to get their website to rank number 1 eventually, but in addition, why not also do research to find out what headline gets the best click-through rate, and also do research to find out what description gets the best click-through rate. So that's what you're doing by testing multiple ads. So when you find a winning ad, you go and then change your title tags and you change your meta descriptions on your clients' websites, and you'll get better click-through rates. And that way you can get more traffic out of the same ranking versus having to go and find a new keyword to rank for. So that's a really, really powerful 6th step that I added and put in there last minute. So after you've taken all of those steps, this is just kind of a quick and dirty example of what you might start to see down the road. So eventually you'll start to see, like, let's just say that your hypothetical blue widget client who told you that they want to rank number 1 for blue widgets, and you say, okay, well, let's test for that keyword. But while we're at it, let's test for all of these other keywords too. And you'll eventually start to get clicks coming through. You'll start to see cost. You'll start to see what average position they are. That's going to give you an indicator of how competitive those various keywords are. So just at a glance, you can start to see, oh, wow, well, that's a really competitive keyword. It's expensive, and it's only ranking number 7. And look, it didn't get a lot of conversions. That cost me nearly $100 per conversion. All these other ones, discount, custom, yeah, this discount got me also a lot of clicks, but no conversions. Why? Well, because they're looking for discount widgets, and your widgets cost $100. But hey, look at this, blue custom widgets. It doesn't get a lot of search. It only gets half of this one that they want to rank for, but it's a lot cheaper, It's a lot less competitive, which probably is a good indicator that's a long tail term. And hey, that got a lot of conversions. And again, this is a hypothetical example. I can't ever show my client's actual data. But what you would see is that, wow, it's a cheap cost per conversion. It's a pretty low competition. This is going to be one that's going to be easy to rank for. So while your client initially said, we want to rank #1 for Blue Widgets, that might take you 3, 6, 8 months to do. Blue Custom Widgets you could probably do by next month, and you could start to get them a lot of conversions. So that's what you start to see once you load up your keywords. And remember, you loaded them up as exact match only, so you know that this was the exact term that they typed in, and that generated 20 sales for you. And hey, they're $100 widgets, so that's $2,000 that you generated in sales for your clients. So again, you have to plug in your own numbers and your own scenarios, but just by simply sorting by conversions and average position, you can just instinctually get a feel for what the easiest to rank for keywords will be, and more importantly, what keywords are going to generate the most sales for your clients. Oh man, thanks for that feedback. I forgot I have 3 monitors, and I'm sitting here talking away with a slide that isn't showing. So here we go. Here we go. I'm going to have to start over. So here is an example of what you would see after you load your keywords, after you're testing your ads, and after you're testing all of those exact match keywords in the Google network. You would start to see that, you'd see how many actual clicks you got. You would actually see how many impressions you got, which is an indicator of exactly how many searches there are per month. Not an estimate, an actual number. And you'd see all these kind of numbers that would help give you an indicator of, well, they want to rank for that, but you could demonstrate, look, it's not generating a lot of sales. It's not worth the trouble. It's just not worth the trouble to rank for this keyword. Tell you what, let's take that budget and dump it into this one, and this one. These top 3. This one looks pretty good too. Let's go after all of those, and I can have you ranking on all of those terms on the first page within the next few months, whereas it might take 6 or 8 months to rank for this, only to find out that it won't generate sales. So this right here is so important and can help you out so much with earning their trust and acting as their advocate rather than just someone who's going to just jump right in and start driving traffic for them. So I really want you to think about that. Make sure to think about budgets and think about getting a testing budget from your clients so that you can do a better job for them in the long run. Good question. What ad position should you target? I'm not a big believer in targeting the top 3 until you know your metrics inside and out. I have plenty of keywords that we are pegged in the #1 position, but that's only after we've done testing and we know that we can consistently convert at a very affordable rate and we are as aggressive as feasibly possible. For testing purposes, I think you're fine doing 3. If you really want, if it's a tough market to get traffic in, maybe position 2. But I really think targeting kind of that average position of 3 to 5. If even 6, because remember, the lower you rank, the cheaper the clicks, the farther you can stretch that testing budget. So sure, you could rank #1 and get a lot of traffic really fast, but you're going to burn through your budget 3 to 5 times faster than if you're bidding in the 4 or 5 position. So personally, I'm not a big believer in bidding in that #1 to #3 position until you know your numbers. I have plenty of clients that we bid very aggressively on certain keywords, but that's only because we know those keywords make a killing and then we get a lot of sales from them. I have one client that we do so extremely well, we have such a phenomenally good ROI that we make sure that we bid way more than necessary to make sure that we never ever lose that #1 position. And my clients will call me and they'll say, hey, our average position last month was 1.5, let's ratchet it up. So, but that's down the road. That's, once you know your metrics and if you decide to continue with AdWords. My whole point with this presentation, though, is AdWords is not for traffic. I mean, it can be, but it gets a lot more complicated when you start to do that, because you start to think in different ways. You start to get more aggressive. Your ROI margins start to shrink, and it becomes a net volume game versus a percentage ROI game. This isn't even that. This is research and development so that your SEO efforts can be as fruitful as possible. But good question on what position to target. So, a final thought. This is, and I'm being redundant here, this is not about getting sales for them, or getting a lot of sales. This is not about generating traffic for the sake of generating traffic. It's about getting data that you can use and directly apply it into your SEO efforts. And then if you're a member of Newbie PPC, you've probably heard me and Howie talk about all of the other things that you can do in terms of leverage. But again, we're just sitting here talking about what you can learn for SEO from an R&D standpoint, and it's worth its weight in gold. I don't care what you have to spend per click. Your clients can eventually spend that one way or another in SEO, and you may as well spend it up front to verify that they can actually convert that traffic into sales. So that's kind of the final thought I want to leave you with. And then the one other thing too is, we talked about this a little bit before, and this is the mindset you need to go into when you consult with your clients. Just because the average spend might be $2 per click, CPC stands for cost per click, and the average instant return might only be $1. So in other words, you're losing 50 cents on the dollar. Does that mean it's a failure? And my argument is absolutely not, because there are still a lot of other things you have to decide. Just because you lost 50 cents on the dollar on this, remember, this is research and development. That's still cheap. The reason Sesame Street was a very, very successful TV show was because they spent obscene amounts of money on not just every episode, but every skit. They had focus groups, and they paid and bribed kids to come in and sit and watch their episodes, and they would have like distractions going on, and anytime those kids got distracted by something other than the episode, they'd scrap that episode or scrap that skit. And they only ran skits that kept the majority of kids' attention. That's R&D, and that's expensive. Losing 50 cents on the dollar on a $500 or $1,000 testing budget, that's nothing. So, the question is, if you do lose 50 cents on the dollar, is that a green light for you? Could you get organic traffic and have that average cost less than 50% of what it's costing you on pay-per-click? And if so, then sure, you can go ahead with your SEO efforts. If not, well then, good thing you found this out early, because you would have wasted a lot of time and money on a keyword that isn't profitable. The more important thing is, can you find other keywords that you didn't think of? And that's where that keyword permutation tool comes into play. That's where looking at your analytics comes into play. And then even more importantly is, I guarantee there are going to be easier to rank for keywords that your clients are going to be going, that's not worth our time. Well, sure it is. If you can build like 20 links to a page so that you rank for a long tail keyword, that's worth your time. It's well worth your time. And trust me, 10 long tail keywords are worth 100 or 200 non-targeted, more competitive keywords. Because by definition, long tail means that your buyers are farther along in the sales cycle, so they're more likely to become leads for you or sales for you. Oops, and I got ahead of myself there. The bottom line, the moral of the story is that you want to, you don't want to just jump when your client says jump. You want to be a trusted advisor. And sure, you might get a quick buck and you might land a quick deal if you can quickly talk them into being your SEO consultant for ranking for the keyword supplements. But 4 or 6 months down the road, you will very likely end up with a frustrated customer who can do you more harm than good in terms of bad reputation. Whereas if you just kind of slow down and take things a little more slowly and say, hey, let's do this strategically and do what's best for you in the long run, you might lose some deals because some other slick talking salesperson might land the deal that you would have otherwise had. But the deals that you do get will be from trusting clients who love everything you have to say and are going to work with you a long time to come. And I can say that from experience. I've had clients who I billed obscene amounts of money for the work I did, and my wife does our invoicing, and one time she even said, "Are we going to send this invoice?" And I said, "Yeah, we generated lots of sales. We're going to do it." And not only that, but the next month their accountant, their bookkeeper, went on vacation, and the CEO personally called me after sending the biggest invoice I had sent in my life. And he personally called and said, "Hey, I apologize. Our bookkeeper's on vacation. We're going to wire your invoice right off to you. I just wanted to let you know, we don't. It's not that we don't appreciate what you're doing. Just wanted to personally call and say that." So, I mean, those are the kind of relationships you want. You don't want a quick buck. You want lifelong relationships from clients who are going to be ecstatic and refer lots of other business to you. And that's what hopefully this kind of shared with you, and you can take and apply into your business. So with that said, if you have questions, you can always email me. As always, I can't promise that I will answer them. I do not answer specific AdWords questions one-on-one via email, except for clients who have me on retainer. But if it's something that would make a good blog post, I will usually answer it and make it a blog post for the benefit of my other clients and blog readers. And a very new development, and I'm excited to announce, is that Howie Jacobson and I, Howie's the author of AdWords for Dummies, have partnered for a AdWords management company. So if you do ever have, if you just want help, if all of this stuff sounds too complicated, we're glad to be the white label behind the scenes service who does this for you, and we can set up an invoice for you, and you can build in kind of a finder's fee payment for yourself and just pass that expense on to your client. We're glad to do that. It's not a cheap service. We do have a minimum threshold, but it is something that we're glad to explore with you. So go ahead and poke around Vitruvian Way. It's a brand new site that we literally just put up this week, but we're excited about the things that Howie and I are putting together, and as well as the team that he has had working with him for years. So feel free to contact me either of those ways through my existing consulting website or through Vitruvian Way, which is our new website that expresses Howie's and my mission combined with all of the different cool things you can do with AdWords. So if you have any other questions, ask them now. Otherwise, I have to apologize. I rambled on for 90 minutes, and I hoped on just having it a 60-minute session for you. So thanks for sticking around. I'm flattered and honored. And if you have any thoughts, questions, feedback, feel free to chime in now. Otherwise, I will sign off for the night and say thank you for joining me. Going once, going twice. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great night.